Thank you for joining this ISO APC virtual meeting 2021. So actually that the last year, we also have the virtual meeting. I was eager to hold a real meeting this year, but still it's impossible in our region. But even in the virtual meeting, I would like to appreciate many sponsors to support us. We have 12 sponsors to support this virtual meeting in this year. We already have 2 satellite symposium, and we will have 2 sponsored lectures later. And the main topics of the webinar is a 3 scientific session. And the first one is the ISO APC National Report, Change of the Decade. And the second one, the top 5 papers from the APC library committees. And the third one is a different strategy around the world regarding the COVID-19. We invited all 5 chapters representative and also the one from Israel. It's a very, I think it's more than 5 hours meeting. It's really fruitful meeting. So that I would like all the participants here to enjoy this meeting tonight. So I would like to go to the first session, ISO APC National Report, the Change of Decade. So I would like to share my slide first. Can you see the slide?
Yes, we can see.
Yes.
Thank you, Lilian. So the moderator of this session is Professor Lilian Ko and Professor Wei-Jie Lee. And the purpose of this first session is a national report, Changing Decade. Many of you remember that we have the Congress in Japan 2011. That was Professor Isao Kawamura was the Congress president at that time. And we have this picture. This is my favorite picture with Professor Kawamura and Lilian and Wei-Jie in Japan, Hokkaido. And at that time, we have the first national report from ABC. And we have 10 national reports from Asian Pacific countries. But at that time, we just have 4 countries involved in IFSO. But I asked more than 10 countries to have some national report in 2011, almost 10 years ago. And fortunately, we still keep all the data of that Congress, so that this time we can compare the data between 10 years ago and now, so that we can learn how APC changed in this decade. So I would like to move on to the lectures. So I'd like to have some comments from Lilian and Wei-Jie before the lecture of the other presidents of these societies. Can I have a comment, Lilian?
Definitely. Well, thank you very much, Kazu, for organizing this virtual meeting and also to have this report from the various countries. I was very excited to see that photo. I forgot that that photo existed. It's a very nice memory of that meeting we had in Hokkaido. And now I'd like to welcome everyone to this year's meeting 2021. Unfortunately, it is virtual, but I'm sure we can learn a lot from each other. So I'm going to look forward to this session and find out how well we've done over the last 10 years and what we are heading towards. So thank you very much, and welcome to everyone who's joined us today.
Thank you, Lillian. So can I have a comment, Wei?
Thank you, Kazu. It's so exciting to meet everyone again. 10 years is just a glimpse. I still remember I lost my cell phone in Hokkaido during my ski. So fortunately, I don't lose anyone here. So let's see what's happened in these 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Wei. So I would like to introduce the president of each society and the representative of the society. So from the Professor Jeff Handroff, Professor Manish Kaitam, and the Professor Jun Lee, and the Professor Sumi An, the Professor Masayuki Ota, and the Professor Edward Olberos, and the Professor Nick Kusai, and the Professor Reno Ludiman, and the Professor Sutep, and the Professor Wang Wei, and the Professor Tejana, and the Professor Simon Wang, and the Professor Wayang. And the last of this session, I would like to summarize the change of the data in SAPC. So I'd like to start the presentation from the Professor Jeff Handroff, Australia. Please join our session.
Well, thank you, Kazu, and congratulations on putting this virtual meeting together. Hello, Lillian. Hello, Wei Ji. It's nice to be with you, if just virtually. I'd like to present on behalf of Australia and New Zealand our report. I'm Jeff Hamdorf. I'm the current president of ANZMOS, which is the Australia and New Zealand Metabolic Obesity Surgery Society. A little background, bariatric surgery has been taking place, at least in Australia and to an extent in New Zealand, for a good length of time. For the first decade or so, it was open surgery and initially bypass, and then the development of the VBG as well. From 1990 to 1995, we saw the emergence of advanced laparoscopic procedures, and that's when obesity surgery started being taken on laparoscopically. And you'll be well aware that there was a significant prominence of restrictive procedures throughout countries at that stage, perhaps more so in Australia. And gastric banding was somewhat considered the gold standard at that time. Up until perhaps 2005, between 2005 and 2010, with some really quite strong and robust large results. If we look at 2010 compared with 2020, we've seen an increase in obesity in our countries and an increase in type 2 diabetes as well, although perhaps and arguably our diabetes is less of a concern than it is for some of the other countries in our region. On the left of the screen is obesity increase in children and adolescents, and that's of significant concern. And the graph on the right shows a shift to the right with the mean BMI. Equally, diabetes, you can see graphically, is on the increase across this epoch. The indications for bariatric and metabolic surgery haven't changed in the last decade. Traditionally, it's a body mass index of 35 with comorbidities, or above 40 without comorbidities, as per the National Institutes of Health guidelines from 1991. And this was adopted by the National Health and Medical Research Council in Australia. Metabolic surgery emerging, we do see some relaxation of the guidelines downwards, as with different cultural groups as well. Public insurance covers surgery in Australia and New Zealand, But the concern is the preparedness of this to take place in the public sector. Only 6% of bariatric surgery is undertaken in Australia in the public sector versus 22% in New Zealand. And this is a significant challenge for us. Over the course of the last decade, we've seen an increase in bariatric surgeons and hospitals in which bariatric surgery takes place. We have 277 active surgeons across Australia and New Zealand operating out of 184 hospitals. There's negligible amounts of open surgery taking place. And so really, if we look at the results, we're considering laparoscopic surgery, and total number went from almost 13,000 in 2010 to 21,000 in 2019, and that dropped back to 17,500 in 2020. And the spread has shown the increase in the sleeve gastrectomy. And these are largely Australian data with some New Zealand data in the final column. So largely sleeve gastrectomy now, increasing numbers of gastric bypasses. We didn't have the ability to determine between different sorts of bypasses before a change in the coding in Australia at least. And so other procedures includes the various sleeve plus procedures that do take place. But the data is there showing the significant predominance of the sleeve gastrectomy, as is to be expected, and the increase in the application of the one anastomosis gastric bypass. As a result of COVID-19, we saw various states across Australia and New Zealand going into lockdown, and the lockdown periods varied from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, with consequent restrictions in the application of elective surgery. And so there was a significant reduction of activity across our countries, with the gross effect of -17, so 17% down, whereas we would have expected a 6% growth. So I expect we can suggest that the net effect was -23%. What we've seen over the last decade is ANZMOS has been promoting public bariatric surgery initiatives and to increase the equity of access for our patients. And in addition, and this is a very positive thing, we have a bariatric surgery registry, and this produces annual reports with easy to read infographic data, which I must say I'm very proud to show this to my patients, and showing activity across Australia and results as well. The challenges that we face: last year in Australia, there was an unprecedented increase in the cost of medico-legal indemnity insurance, and this was considered unjustifiable. As a result of this, we held a workshop recently on medico-legal aspects of bariatric surgery and look forward to working more with this. Further work that we have to do includes the public access, equity of access, and you will be aware, I hope, that we're hosting IFSO in 2024 in Melbourne. Thank you for your time.
I'm Dr. Manish Khetan from India. I'm representing Obesity Surgery Society of India and presenting the IFSO APC National Report for 2021. So, bariatric and metabolic surgery has been being performed in India over 2 decades. In 1999, Dr. Srihari Dhure Patil performed the first bariatric surgery in India in form of an open vertical banded gastroplasty. And Dr. Lakdawala performed the first laparoscopic RYGB in 2004. Dr. Bala Shanamugan performed first laparoscopic sleeve gastrectomy in February 2005. And first one anastomosis gastric bypass was performed by Dr. Kular in 2007. So what is the demography of obese and diabetes adult population in 2010 and now in 2020? So BMI more than 30 or equal to more than 30 kg per meter square. In 2010, the rural population was 2%, which has gone up to 5.2% in 2020. The urban population was 4.9%, which has reached almost double, 9.1%. Type 2 diabetes, the load was 4.46%, which has gone up to 11.8% in 2020. The indication of bariatric and metabolic surgery in 2010 was BMI more than 40. In 2020, it is now BMI more than 35, which is according to the Asian consensus. In metabolic surgery, BMI was in 2010, BMI was more than 35 with obesity related with other form of comorbidities like diabetes, hypertension, or hypercholesteremia, sleep apnea. But in 2020, the BMI more than 30 with diabetes or any other two obesity related disease, and any BMI less than 27.5 has to be done with proper ethics committee approval, and it is not approved as of now. In 2010, the BMI bariatric surgery was not covered in Mediclaim. In 2020, it is covered by insurance company with BMI more than 40 kg per meter squared. And metabolic surgery in 2010 was not covered. Now it is covered with BMI more than 35 with one of the following severe comorbid condition like obesity-related cardiomyopathy, coronary heart disease, severe sleep apnea, and uncontrolled type 2 diabetes. So number of bariatric surgeons in 2010 was around about 100. In 2020, it is 450. Institution which was certified by Obesity Surgery Society of India in 2010, it was nil. Now it is around about 20. Number of bariatric and metabolic surgeries in 2010, 19 and 20. So number of bariatric metabolic surgery in 2010, total number was 2,250, all were laparoscopy, which increased to 20,240 by 2019, and in 2020 it is around about 4 to 5,000. The reason is that due to pandemic, the registry is also not complete and a lot of people are not being able to give the data. So number of laparoscopic procedures in 2010 to 19, you can see in 2010, we don't have the data because there was no system of registry. In 2019, we have a captured data. So number of sleeves are most, followed by one anastomosis gastric bypass, followed by Roux-en-Y gastric bypass, and other procedures are less. So split, you can see in 2019, sleeve is more, RY followed by MGB, followed by RYGB, then revision, metabolic, and others which are not listed above. Bariatric and metabolic surgery was temporarily restricted due to lack of knowledge of COVID-19 government restrictions between April to June 2020. As a result, the number of cases were decreased in a high volume center and the total number of cases were also decreased. The biggest changes in bariatric and metabolic surgery in last 10 years. The health insurance in India has started covering bariatric surgery since last 7 to 8 months. The number of institutions performing bariatric and metabolic surgery has increased 20-fold. Center of excellence has gone from 0 to 20, and the number of cases has also increased to 10-folds. That is from 2,250 to 20,240. Current problem is lack of public awareness. Bariatric surgery is limitedly covered by health insurance. The number is still small compared to our total population. And medical fraternity have not known evidences of safety and effectiveness of bariatric and metabolic surgery. Thank you.
Esteemed colleagues and friends, thank you so much for the opportunity and for the invitation to present here at the IFSO APC Virtual Meeting 2021. My name is June and I'm representing Singapore. This is a picture of my home. We are affectionately called the Little Red Dot and are located just north of the equator. We are also sometimes called the Garden City, and we love to cultivate hybrid orchids and name them after celebrities. Let's look at the prevalence of obesity in Singapore. This is defined as BMI of 30 and above and is represented by the blue columns. Over the past decade, we actually see a modest decline and then a rise back to its original baseline of 10.5% last year. I do urge everyone to look at these results with some caution because the methodologies, the number of respondents who were interviewed and examined do differ for all 4 surveys. This is the prevalence of metabolic disorders in Singapore. Blue represents diabetes, orange, hypertension, gray, hyperlipidemia. All 3 have increased in prevalence over the last decade. However, I'd like to show you the line in red, which represents the age-adjusted prevalence of diabetes. And we see that it is actually pretty stable at 7.8 and 7.9% in the last 3 years, which may suggest that the rising crude rates may be in part due to an aging population. In the bid to encourage healthier eating, the Healthy Plate concept was introduced to Singaporeans. Grocery items were tagged with the Healthier Choice symbol, and dining establishments were given the Healthier Choice sticker. This slide shows the prevalence of physical activity among Singaporeans. Over the last decade, there is an increasing prevalence of those who exercise at least 20 minutes per occasion, 3 or more days a week. This increase in physical activity may be in part due to efforts from the Health Promotion Board, which has collaborated with national parks, participating shopping malls and workplaces, and putting up signages, distance markers, and promotional material encouraging activities such as stair climbing. The Health Promotion Board has also created a fitness tracking mobile phone app, and through the promise of shopping vouchers and other freebies, has encouraged participants to log in daily step count of 10,000 and more. In summary, over the past decade, the rates of obesity and metabolic disorders are on an increasing trend. Let's talk a bit about the history of bariatric surgery in Singapore. It started in the late 1980s with an open vertical banded gastroplasty. The first lap sleeve gastrectomy was performed in 2007, and a year later, the first lap Roux-en-Y gastric bypass was performed. This is a look at the growth of bariatric and metabolic surgery in Singapore over the last decade. We see more than a twofold increase from 215 cases in 2010 to 483 in 2019. In fact, in 2013, there was an exponential 93% growth, year-on-year growth. But with the pandemic last year, we see a decline of about a quarter. The most popular procedure performed is the sleeve gastrectomy. The bypass is pretty stable, and in the last 2-3 years, we're seeing a small decline. We also see an increase in the number of revisionist surgery performed. Over the last 10 years, the indication for bariatric and metabolic surgery hasn't changed. For bariatric surgery, it is for a BMI of 37.5 and above. For metabolic surgery, BMI of 32.5 with an obesity-related disease. The number of bariatric surgeons has more than doubled over the last 10 years. In the public sector, there is no pure bariatric surgeon. We also perform general surgery and upper GI surgery. So each individual facility actually credentials their own bariatric surgeon. The cost of bariatric surgery in Singapore varies widely, not only between government hospitals and private hospitals. In the government hospital, there's also a class system that can affect the amount of subsidy that the patient receives. All citizens and permanent residents would have mandatory basic health hospitalization plan. But in general, private insurance does not cover bariatric surgery. The insurance coverage with the basic health plan is incomplete. Next, I'd just like to share a little bit about the Obesity and Metabolic Surgery Society of Singapore. We were founded in 2011 and had 11 members in the inaugural meeting. But today, 9 years later, we have increased to 48 members, including endocrinologists, physicians, and allied healthcare members. Our society is active in educational events and partnering events with our sister societies like SASO, the Singapore Association for the Study of Obesity. We celebrated World Obesity Day together in 2020 despite the pandemic. You can see some of us wearing masks over here. So from face-to-face meetings, we moved online. And despite these challenges, we were also able to hold our major annual OBES Congress online with more than 500 delegates from the region. Finally, what are the challenges we'll be facing from here on? On the left is a list of difficulties that we were facing a decade ago, as presented by Dr. Anton Chen. I think the greatest difference 10 years later, today, is that we have more bariatric surgeries performed, more bariatric surgeons, more training surgeons interested and keen to advocate for patients with obesity. And there is greater acceptance by medical colleagues, which is what made this possible. However, I think we still lack full insurance coverage, especially for those who are in need. Last year's pandemic has put a dent in our efforts, and bariatric surgery is still on its way to resuming for some centers. Thank you very much for your time.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to talk about the activities of KSMBS and its plans. Obesity has gradually increased, and the population with BMI over 35 has almost tripled. That is 0.8% here. Now, 1 out of 100 Korean is a surgical candidate. What about obesity in the diabetes population in Korea? About 41% of patients with diabetes are overweighted, and about 11% of patients with diabetes have BMI over 30. Surgeries are recommended for the patient with BMI over 30 with at least one comorbidities. The Korean National Healthcare Insurance System is a lot lenient with obese patients here. Patients who meet those criteria and do not respond to non-surgical treatment options preoperatively can be qualified for surgery with full insurance coverage. Those with BMI between 27.5 and 30 with poorly controlled diabetes are also qualified for metabolic surgery with partial insurance coverage. According to the NHI Review and Assessment Service, the new claims for bariatric surgery insurance coverage were over 2,100 cases for the first year of launching the national insurance plan. The number of cases for second year increased by 6.3% than the first year. Among them, 27% of total procedures were sleeve gastrectomy, while only 9.5% Roux-en-Y gastric bypass. Among all surgeons who claimed bariatric surgery insurance coverage to the NHI last year, 57 surgeons registered their surgical cases on the KSMBS online data registry system. They put in 1,500 cases in the KSMBS database. That was 65% of the total national bariatric surgical cases shown in the KNHI review system. There are also dominant sleeve gastrectomy cases up to 73%. By the way, according to the KSMBS registry data, in the first year of insurance coverage, the number of surgical cases increased by a threefold. We have a couple of issues now. We need to observe the long-term weight profile after sleeve gastrectomy in Korea. The lower level of understanding of bariatric surgery and metabolic surgery is not an unusual problem here. We are also keeping a watch on the effectiveness of diabetes surgery in non-morbidly obese patients, and we also have concern about gastric cancer in the remnant stomach. Like in previous years, we organized the annual national conference this spring. We hosted the 4th annual international conference last September in Seoul, in which over 300 attendees registered from over 25 countries. It was very successful, and I want to take this time to thank all participants again from the Asia-Pacific region. By the way, we want to host IFSO World Congress in Seoul shortly. In 2015, as we remember, we successfully held a APC Congress here, and now we sincerely want to invite all the members of IFSO to Seoul sooner. I believe that hosting the IFSO World Congresses in Korea will boost Asia Pacific's contribution and development in this critical scientific field. That is all for what I want to share with you about what we have done while we could not see each other in person and what we want to do shortly. Thank you everyone so much for listening, and I hope you stay safe and see you soon face to face. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chairman, for kind introduction. I would like to show the Japanese data. Regarding the brief history of bariatric metabolic surgery in Japan, in 1982, bariatric surgery was introduced into Japan by Professor Kawamura. In 2002, laparoscopic bariatric surgery was introduced into Japan by Dr. Kasama. In 2005, laparoscopic gastric banding and sleeve gastrectomy were started in Japan. In 2007, Dr. Kasama developed sleeve DJB as a metabolic surgery. Since 2014, laparoscopic sleeve gastrectomy has been covered by Japanese government health insurance. Since 2018, sleeve DJB has been partially covered by health insurance as the advanced medical treatment. The Japanese Society for Treatment of Obesity has been established since 2007, and the Surgical Committee is the Japanese Society for the Study of Obesity and Metabolic Disorder, JSSO, and IFSO Japan chapter. The IFSO APC and JSSO Congress has held in 2011 in Rusutsu, Hokkaido, and the consensus statement for indication of bariatric metabolic surgery was discussed and announced. Now, Dr. Kasama is the president of IFSO APC. In Japan, obese population clearly increased for recent 10 years, but diabetes adult population unchanged. Regarding indication of bariatric metabolic surgery in Japanese guidelines, the indication of bariatric surgery has been more than 35 BMI and unchanged. The indication of metabolic surgery has been more than 32 BMI with obesity-related disease and slightly changed for 10 years. Regarding public health insurance coverage, in 2010, there was no public health insurance coverage for bariatric metabolic surgery in Japan. In 2020, for bariatric surgery, laparoscopic sleeve gastrectomy is fully covered by government health insurance, and sleeve DJB partially covered by health insurance. For metabolic surgery, sleeve gastrectomy in very limited patients with BMI 32.5 to 34.9 is fully covered by health insurance. Consensus statement of the three Japanese societies of bariatric metabolic surgery for Japanese obese patients with type 2 diabetes has been announced since March 2021. Metabolic surgery is recommended in patients with BMI more than 35 regardless of the level of glycemic control, and with BMI 32 to 35 and inadequately controlled hyperglycemia, hemoglobin A1C more than 8%. According to the guidelines, I hope government health insurance coverage for sleeve gastrectomy will be expanded next spring. The number of bariatric surgeons and institutions has been increased more than 5-fold for 10 years. Compared to 2010, the number of bariatric surgery increased about 10-fold, although the number was expected to decrease in 2020 compared to that in 2019. The number was not decreased in 2020. In 2010, bypass surgeries accounted for about 30% of the procedures, but recently sleeve gastrectomy accounted for more than 90% and bypass surgeries did only 5% or less. Regarding the influence of COVID-19 in Japan, bariatric metabolic surgery was temporarily restricted due to lack of surgical gowns and so on between April and May 2020. As a result, the number of cases decreased in a high-volume center, but the total number of cases was unchanged between 2019 and 2020 in Japan. Regarding the biggest changes for 10 years, government health insurance has covered not only bariatric surgery, but also metabolic surgery. The number of institutions performing bariatric metabolic surgery has increased 5.9 folds, and the number of cases has also increased 10 folds. Regarding current problems in Japan, only laparoscopic sleeve gastrectomy has been fully covered by government health insurance. Metabolic surgery is limitedly covered by health insurance. The number is still small compared to the total population in Japan. Many Japanese physicians have not known evidences of safety and effectiveness of bariatric metabolic surgery. Thank you for your attention.
Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Edward Oliveros from the Philippines. And today I'll be presenting the report of the Philippine Society for Metabolic and Bariatric Surgery from 2011 to 2021. I'd like to thank IFSO 21 for inviting the Philippines to present a report. I'll start with the history of bariatric and metabolic surgery in the Philippines. We started with the open vertical banded gastroplasty in 2001 to the open gastric bypass Roux-en-Y and laparoscopic non-adjustable gastric banding in 2002 to laparoscopic adjustable gastric banding and laparoscopic gastric bypass Roux-en-Y in 2004 to laparoscopic biliopancreatic diversion, duodenal switch, open sleeve gastrectomy, laparoscopic sleeve gastrectomy, laparoscopic gastric plication in 2007, laparoscopic sleeve gastrectomy, duodenojejunal bypass loop in 2008, laparoscopic sleeve gastrectomy, duodenojejunal bypass Roux-en-Y in 2015, and in 2017, laparoscopic proximal gastric bypass. The Philippine Society for Metabolic and Bariatric Surgery, or PSMBS, was founded in 2004. We started with 7 members, 3 of whom were ASMBS and IFSO members. So we became affiliated with the IFSO APC. And when I assumed the presidency in 2016, we became active locally and internationally. And our priorities at that time were to train general surgeons in bariatric and metabolic surgery locally and internationally, increase the number of surgeries in our country, and to establish international presence in the IFSO, APC, the world, and also other international bariatric and metabolic societies. So when we started in 2011, we had 11 members locally and 3 IFSO members. In 2016, when I assumed the presidency, we had 22 local members and 13 IFSO members. Now in 2021, we have 12 members locally and 8 members in the IFSO. These are our activities from 2016 to 2021. We started first by training local international surgeons. We did a lot of fresh cadaver, human cadaver training courses in March 2016, July 2016, and July 2017 in cooperation with the Japanese society headed by Dr. Kazunori Kasama and Dr. Yosuke Seki. We also hosted in July 2017 the first Asia Pacific Obesity and Diabetes Symposium of St. Luke's Medical Center. I invited top leaders from Asia from Dr. C.K. Wang, Dr. Kazunori Kazama, Dr. Lilian Ko, Dr. Yues Seki, Dr. Sutep, and Dr. Simon Wong. And in October 2017, the IBC Fellowship did a training course in Manila. So Dr. Ramana got a lot of experts from India and from the United States, such as Dr. Matthew Groh, Dr. Dana Portinier, and Dr. Sudan. And in November 2017, the ELSA was hosted in Cebu, and the PSMBS invited a lot of experts from Asia, such as Dr. C.K. Wang, Dr. Kasama, Dr. Lakdawala from India, Dr. Renu Rajan from Malaysia, Dr. Rao from Singapore, Dr. Shabir from Singapore, and Dr. Sutep from Thailand, and also Dr. Simon Wong from Hong Kong. We also did a live surgery, the proximal gastric bypass by Dr. C.K. Wong. Our last human cadaver training course was in July 2018, and we invited Dr. Sutep from Thailand, Dr. G.V. Rao from India, and Dr. Soriano from the United States to help in this course. We did many conventions locally with our local surgical societies, such as the Philippine Association of Laparoscopic and Endoscopic Surgeons, the Philippine Society of General Surgeons, and the Philippine College of Surgeons, which were held every year from July 2016 up till 2021. Our last virtual and hybrid participation with the PALES convention was in July 2021. It was like a full day of bariatric and metabolic surgery, and the PSMBS hosted Dr. Wei Ji Li from Taiwan, Dr. Hua Yang from China, Dr. Praveen Raj from India, and we had a local speaker, Dr. Salonka. Now, the future of the PSMBS, we hope to host the 2022 or 2023 IFSO APC meeting. This still has to be discussed with the executive board. But if ever it will be in November, hopefully we can try it in Clark, in Pampanga, which is 1 hour from Manila. And if you can see in the screen, the airport in Clark is an international airport. It has a gateway to a lot of countries around Asia. And if ever you arrive in Manila, it's just 1.5 hours by car. So they have a new international airport in Clark. They just opened it this year, 2021. And they plan to have a lot of Asian airlines coming in, like Air Asia, even from the Middle East, like Emirates. Now in Clark, Pampanga, just a short drive away, you can see the falls in Bolinao, or even the 100 Islands in Pangasinan. Or a little bit farther to the north, you have the Banhawe Rice Terraces or the beach in Pagudpod. If not in November, we can have it on December in Manila, which will be a joint meeting with our local surgical society, the Philippine College of Surgeons of PCS. So if it's in Manila, there'll be more delegates, and the hotel will be EDSA Shangri-La probably. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you in the Philippines in 2022 or 2023.
Good morning, everyone, and selamat pagi. So today I'm going to present the Malaysia National Report. So this is a brief history of bariatric and metabolic surgery in Asia. If you can see, Malaysia first started doing bariatric surgery back in 1996. We have actually published a paper in obesity surgery describing the progress of bariatric surgery in Malaysia. This is Professor Frida Mia, who first performed the first bariatric surgery back in 1996 in the National University of Malaysia. At the time, the operation was an open vertical gastroplasty, Unfortunately, due to a lot of complication, the program was stopped and was only revived until Prof. Jasmi restarted bariatric surgery back in 2001, where he performed the first laparoscopic gastric band. This was followed by laparoscopic gastric bypass in 2003. And Dr. Hisham, who is currently our Director General of Health in Malaysia, performed the first sleeve gastrectomy in 2003. And since then, more and more bariatric surgery has been performed. We established our Bariatric and Metabolic Society back in 2012. If you can see, the population of Malaysia is 33 million. However, it is definitely not the healthiest country, not only in Asia, but the world. And the two denominator for unhealthiness is BMI and the number of diabetes, in particular type 2 diabetes. And you can see over the past decade, the number of obese and overweight population has increased from 10% to close to 20%, and diabetics around 11 increased to 18.3%. So what are the indication? About a decade ago, in 2010, we follow the national NIH recommendation. Bariatric surgery for BMI more than 40, whereas metabolic surgery, in particular with comorbidities with BMI more than 35. However, the goalpost has been reduced, and in 2020, we follow the Asian guidelines, and these are the criteria that we follow in Malaysia. We do low BMIs in special cases where the diabetic control has been very, very poor despite on medication. Currently, what about the financial reimbursement and coverage? So currently there is no public health insurance. It is not covered by private insurance. However, for government servant, it is fully reimbursed. Non-government servant, they have to pay a certain amount of money for or to undertake surgery. So for public patients, around $1,000 to $2,000. For private hospitals, around $6,000 to $9,000. Our employee provident fund covers 100% for bariatric surgery. The number of bariatric surgeons has increased over the past decade, as you can see here, from 8 to 38 in a matter of 10 years. And the number of institutions that perform bariatric surgery has also increased from 2010 to 2020, from 5 to 33. These are the numbers of surgery, and you can see there's a steep rise from 2010 and forward to a decade later, which has increased significantly. This is the graph for bariatric surgery performed in Malaysia. As you can see, from 1996 to 2009, there were only 220 bariatric surgery performed. And you can see over time, the number has increased, but from 2015, the numbers has increased quite dramatically. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19 in 2020, the number has reduced due to obvious reason. This is the number of laparoscopic procedure. As you can see, laparoscopic sleeve gastrectomy, Roux-en-Y gastric bypass, and mini gastric bypass remain the commonest procedure in Malaysia. there are other varieties of operation performed. Again, if you look, the other types of procedure are not many done. I mean, we in Malaysia are quite conservative and still do the more conventional operation. So, what are the influence of COVID-19 on bariatrics and metabolic surgery in Malaysia? Due to the numbers of bariatric surgery performed has dramatically reduced because of COVID-19 pandemic. Major hospital that performs bariatric surgery, including our hospital, National University Hospital, has been converted to either full COVID hospital or hybrid hospital, and this has added burden of COVID on the utilization of ICU and HDS beds, consuming the anesthetic workload, and has restricted number of bariatric services. However, bariatric metabolic surgery remains the best modality in combating the rise in obesity and metabolic surgery in Malaysia. So, what are the current problems and future perspective on bariatric and metabolic surgery? As mentioned, but obesity and its common comorbidities, which is diabetes, is very prevalent in Malaysia. Complications due to diabetes is very high in Malaysia. And also more worryingly, the high incidence of young onset diabetes is increasing and very alarming. The current best medical approach to treat diabetes is inadequate to combat diabetes in Malaysia. The incorporation of metabolic surgery would be most effective approach as supported by high level of clinical evidence. The inclusion of metabolic surgery in the updated diabetes, obesity, and bariatric clinical practice guideline in Malaysia reinforce the acceptance and the importance of surgery in managing a poorly controlled diabetes and, of course, obesity. So with that, I thank you for listening.
Hello and warm welcome from Indonesia. I'm Reno Rudiman. I'm a digestive and bariatric surgeon from Indonesia. I would like to report our current status of bariatric surgery. So as a brief history of bariatric and metabolic surgery in Indonesia, it was started by Dr. Barlian Suteja in 2005, and procedure done at that time was laparoscopic adjustable gastric banding. After that, Roux-en-Y gastric bypass and sleeve gastrectomy was done with the help of several bariatric surgeons from Japan and India as a demo procedure, and then sleeve gastrectomy were routinely started in 2012-2013. As for demography of obese and diabetes adult population in 2013, according to a statistic report, a BMI of 30 or more was 15.4%, but it increased in 2016 to 20.7%. And type 2 diabetes was 6.9% in 2013 and increased to 8.5% 2016. So the trend was increasing. As for indication for bariatric and metabolic surgery, in 2010, it was BMI for more than 37, and in 2020, it was BMI 35 or more, and metabolic surgery with BMI more than 32 with comorbidities, it was changed in 2020 to BMI 30 or more with obesity-related disease. Coverage of public insurance on bariatric or metabolic surgery in 2010 and 2020, it has not been covered yet. Yet sporadic coverage depending on what insurance rank at workplace, but it basically or generally it's not covered yet. For number of bariatric surgeons and institution in 2010, it was only 4 surgeons, and in 2020 now has come to 17 surgeons from 10 institutions. Number of bariatric metabolic surgery in 2010, so only 8 surgeries, and in 2019 increased to 94 per year, but it decreased by the COVID-19 pandemic down to 20. The most popular procedure is still laparoscopic sleeve gastrectomy, and followed by laparoscopic root-arm gastric bypass. And then few other cases like a revisional surgery, only a handful number. Bariatric or metabolic surgery was temporarily halted to help decrease transmission of COVID-19 in the first half of 2019. Patients were also reluctant to undergo operations, and as a result, the number of cases was decreased in total. The biggest change in bariatric metabolic surgery for 10 years, it is now becoming popular, and the number of institutions performing bariatric metabolic surgery has increased from 1% center to 7% in 10 centers. And the community is starting to be aware of the existence of bariatric surgery. So there are also community of bariatric surgery patients now. And periodically, we conduct webinars on bariatric surgery to further popularizing the bariatric surgery. The current problem, it is still no insurance coverage yet, and culture or mindset of no problem being obese as long as you're healthy, it is still very strong. However, growth of bariatric surgery is inevitable. I think that's all that I can convey. So I hope this is helpful in giving you insight on the current status of bariatric surgery in Indonesia. Thank you.
Good afternoon, dear IPSO APC President Kasunori Kasama, IPSO President Lilian Ko, and the founding President of APM Professor Lee. Thank you very much. I'm going to present the data from Thailand on behalf of the TSMBS. Thank you very much. This is the data from Thailand, the Thailand report 2021. And this is a brief history of bariatric surgery in Thailand. You can see that we started first open bypass in 2003. After that, we have lap band in 2004, and then lower gastric bypass in 2005. After that, we have the training center at King Chulalongkorn Memorial Hospital in South Cadaver. And after that, we have the multidisciplinary team at King Chulalongkorn Memorial Hospital. And that year, we have the sleeve gastrectomy laparoscopically done. In 2008, we have the Thai Society for Metabolic and Bariatric Surgery, TSMBS. And then we founded the fellowship training in 2009. 2014, we host the APM-BWS 2014 at Krabi, where it was very successful. Then we start having our guideline in 2018 that when we submit the reimbursement proposal. And finally, we have become the member of IPSO APC in 2019. In 2021, this year, the reimbursement has been approved, started from October this year. And in 2023, we're going to have the APM-BWS meeting at Rayong. So the demographic of obesity and diabetes, comparing 2010 and 2018, actually, you can see that BMI above 30 in 2010 was 9%, increasing to be 11.6%. Type 2 diabetes, it was 7.8, and it became 11.1 at 2018. So it's increasing like other part of the world. The indication, you can see that we have a same, no different indication, BMI above 37 or BMI above 32.5 plus obesity-related diseases. So this is the indication. And what we have been doing, the TSM has been already got the approval from the government. So you can see that 2010, we don't have the coverage. In 2020, finally, both bariatric and metabolic surgery has been covered by the government. Thank you very much. Number of bariatric surgeons and institutes, you can see that in 2010, we have only 15 surgeons in 12 institutes. In 2010, we have 56 surgeons and 35 is still doing bariatric and metabolic surgery. Number of cases, you can see that we have only 153 cases in 2010. It increasing to be 835 in 2019, but with some effect of COVID-19, the number has been decreasing to 762 in 2020. This is number of cases. You can see that in 2010, we have 3 cases for open. The rest will be laparoscopic surgery. After that, all procedure will be done by laparoscopic technique. And this is the percent of cases I think I had been shown already in my graph. You can see that in 2010, the most common procedure will be gastric bypass, 83.7%, following by adjustable gastric band at 9.8%, and sleeve gastrectomy was 6.5%. In 2019, actually, you can see as the same as the global trend that the sleeve gastrectomy has become #1 at 84.6%. The long wide gastric bypass has been decreasing to 12.8%. And we don't have any more lap band, but we do have the revision surgery at 2%, as well as the procedure at 0.6%. In 2020, actually, you can see the trend of sleeve gastrectomy has been also still increasing to 86.6%, and long wide gastric bypass by percentage is decreasing to 8.5%, and revision is increasing to 3.3%, and some sleeve plus procedure has been increasing to 1.6%. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. President, the influence of COVID-19 actually has been evolving very much on bariatric surgery. So you can see that metabolic bariatric surgery has been partially restricted or postponed due to the resources limitation. So the prioritization has been going to emergency and time sensitive cases. So we have been stopped doing operation for a couple of months. As a result, the number of cases was decreasing in some high volume center, but the number is still not much decreased because of number of center and number of surgeons been increasing as well. This is what we have here, is that the government has been covered already for the reimbursement, and number of still has been increasing 2.9%, and number of cases has been increasing almost 5-fold. So the trend is still keep going. Even the COVID has been a little bit evolving. So there are differences in the health insurance system in Thailand. But anyway, we have the reimbursement already improved, and the number of cases comparing to the candidates is still small, so that we still have a big gap of improvement that we are going to do. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. President, you are invited to join us at Rayong for APM BDMS 2023. Rayong is beautiful, and science and they all will be putting together. Please join us at Rayong, and we hope that in the future we can have the IPSO APC at Thailand too. Thank you very much.
Hi, dear friends. I'm Wang Wei from Taiwan, here to present the recent and the future activity in Taiwan. I'm sorry for the lag. Well, the number of bariatric surgery in Taiwan in 2020 is 3,200 cases over 13 institutes. Well, the number of bariatric surgeries the level stay the same around for the past 3 years, around 3,000 cases. We're not quite influenced by the COVID-19 epidemics because of the border control is quite well. Most of our surgery are sleeve gastrectomies, followed by bypass, including mini gastric bypass, which is also known as one anastomosis gastric bypass, and Roux-en-Y gastric bypass. When we look at the different the percentage of different surgery, there is an increased percentage of revisional surgery for the past 3 years, and also as well as the increased percentage of endoscopic procedures, including intragastric balloon and endoscopic sleeve gastroplasty. We do have ADSS annual meeting, and it is held in November 7th. This is hosted by Professor Weijie Li and took place this time in Beijing Friendship Hospital in cooperation with Taiwan Society. And because of the increased interesting trend about endoscopic sleeve gastroplasty, so we are going to have a symposium and training workshop for bariatric surgeon for interventional endoscopic procedure, which will be taken place in December 4th. Also, there is an international meeting, International Association of Surgeons, Gastroenterologists, and Oncologists meeting in Taiwan, which will be a hybrid meeting, both online and real meeting. And there is a special section for bariatric surgery on day 2, which will be taken place in November 20. So here is the summarize of recent and future activity in Taiwan. As mentioned, there ADSSI SGO and the Symposium on Interventional Bariatric Surgery. In the future, there will be a Tzu Chi medical system for 4 hospital association talking about metabolic and bariatric surgery as a local meetings. And there is a regular meeting is in the southern part of Taiwan is fifth Kaohsiung Bariatric Surgical Society, which will be held in December 19. And we more and more young surgeons showing interest in bariatric surgery, so we are going to have a young surgeon forum in March next year. This is a summary of all the name and date of future activities. Also, we start our certificate for bariatric nurse this year. The slide shows the courses they have to take before taking the examination, getting the board. And because of the COVID-19 epidemic, so the course is currently online course. So all the nurses should attend, should finish all the online courses and finish the examination. If they pass, they will be certified by our society as a CBN. I do believe this is the first CBN in Asian Pacific region. Hopefully, it will become a very successful course and standard in Taiwan. And thank you all.
Good day to you, President and the Council of IPSA and the dear members. I'm Tejana Vijayaratna, the President of the Sri Lankan Society for Metabolic and Bariatric Surgery, representing the National Report 2021. Our bariatric operation started fairly late compared to the other Asian countries, and first documented series in Sri Lanka was starting from 2004, where 25 open RYGBs being done by a single surgeon, and since then few operations has happened in the country, but there are no documented series as such. And 2009, we established the laparoscopic and metabolic surgery center at Colombo South Teaching Hospital, which is my center, and around the same time, National Hospital also started by Professor Jean de Souza in 2009. Started with open bariatric operations, but later they kind of started doing laparoscopic operations. Demography of obesity in Sri Lanka, we have 16.8% obesity rate in 2010, and type 2 diabetes was around 19%, giving 1/5 of our adult population being diabetics in 2010. 2020, we don't have updated data. The total laparoscopic operations from 2009 to 20, 315 total laparoscopic operations were performed at my center at Colombo South Teaching Hospital, and Professor Jean de Souza has managed to perform 47 operations, and out of 44 were laparoscopic sleeve gastrectomies. About 6 other centers cases have also been done in various places. Then indications for bariatric and metabolic surgery is because it's a little issue because we don't have a national database for bariatric and metabolic separately, and individual units have their data, and there's no country-wide data at the moment. But at Colombo South Teaching Hospital, that's our unit. Majority of our patients had some metabolic issue, and surgery at the BMI 32 was less than 10% in the my unit. Then we have analyzed the first 200 patients at Colombo South Teaching Hospital, and mean P of weight was 114, with giving a BMI of 45, which is very high compared to other series reported in Asia. And 92% of patients managed to lose 50% excess weight, and diabetic resolution around 85%. And similarly, almost all patients had some degree of fatty liver, and resolution of fatty liver has also taken an acceptable route. So coverage of public insurance in bariatric surgery, Sri Lanka has a 100% free public healthcare system where any operation is done free of charge in the government hospitals, and this is the major healthcare system in the country. We have private sector hospitals, especially in Colombo, which have facilities for bariatric surgery. About 75% of all operations that are documented here were performed at the 2 government hospitals, National Hospital and Colombo South Teaching Hospital, and private insurance does not pay for bariatric surgery because they categorize these as cosmetic operations. Number of bariatric surgeons have been only 2 in Sri Lanka. There are about 6 new surgeons who are trained, but they have still not started their units. In 2010, we don't have the data for bariatric and metabolic surgery, but in 2019, this is the total number that we have seen. 2020, we see about halving of that number in the government sector due to the COVID pandemic, but the private sector continued. Laparoscopic sleeve gastrectomy being the predominant operation in 2019, and we also have done bypasses, the Roux-en-Y gastric bypass and the mini gastric bypass, which is predominantly done in our unit. So government sector operations got frequently cancelled due to the impact of COVID in 2019, and it's slowly resuming now. We have managed to perform about 42 operations in private sector in 2020 March onwards, and also Jean de Souza has managed to perform 3 operations during this time. So the biggest changes in bariatric and metabolic surgery for the 10 years is that there had been no major policy change in the guidelines or the referral system, but increasing number of referrals are being coming to us, and we continue to perform sleeve gastrectomies as the primary operation at National Hospital, but at our hospital, the sleeve gastrectomy rate has dropped down to about 30%, where we are performing more mini gastric bypasses and Roux-en-Y gastric bypasses. And we have uncertain future with regard to government funding because of the severe economic constraints brought about by the COVID in this country. So same reason I think limits the young train surgeons in setting up new centers. Referrals are increasing, especially with regard to metabolic surgery, but the future remains uncertain for bariatric and metabolic surgery in Sri Lanka. Thank you.
Hi, hello everybody. It's my great honor to come again. This is the IPSO APC Virtual Meeting 2021. My name is Dr. Simon Wong from Hong Kong. And today I would like to report some of our national activity during the year 2020. So in Hong Kong, bariatric surgery have been started since 2002 with where the first lap band surgery performed. And in 2004, the first endoscopic therapy intragastric balloon also performed in Hong Kong at that time. And as the years come by, more and more procedures have been carried out. And about 10 years ago, our group of bariatric surgeons decided to join IPSO. But at that time, we don't have our own society, so we joined as a group of under the Medical Society of Associated Surgery, and at that time become a member of IPSO. As the years go on, we further developed the bariatric surgery and also the endoscopic therapy. And in 2017, at that time, we had formed our own society, and Dr. Kasama had very kind to come to Hong Kong and join us for these celebrations, and also give us a lot of good idea, which help us for development. So a year have been passed. So what happened in 2020? I think you all know this is a year of disaster when the COVID come, when all the operation is cancelled, outpatient cancelled. When you look at the hospital admissions, there have been a almost 50% drop. Most of the elective cases cancelled. And operation is also significantly affected. Only emergency and essential cancer surgery or life-saving surgery is performing. So bariatric surgery is not a procedure, so we have been 100% drop in the first few months. But this chaos is not just in the hospital, but for our society. We initially planned a number of activity, especially the APM BSS in 2020, but it must be cancelled, and also some regular activity as well. So at the later end of the year, there's a little bit improved for the COVID. So now we don't have conference, but we still can eat together, but limited to 4 people per table. So we decided to create the activity of lunch symposium at October, and luckily we are also at the same date, the same time with the Singapore Society Conference. So we decided to join together as a one conference to have 2 activity. So in Singapore, they have 2 overseas speakers, Yong Kim, Jin Kim, and also Ganesh, to talk about bariatric surgery. So in Hong Kong, we also come together. At that time, this luxury hotel, because of COVID, they have almost completely shut down. And luckily, with a very cheap price, we had organized our lunch symposium here. So with the virus, we can still have eating together 4 by 4 tables, and we can see the presentation from Singapore, and also we have our own presentation. And so it has struggled for years, but we still have some activity. And next year, 2021, we now have the allowed to have hybrid meeting. So this APM BEST 2021 last year has successfully carried out in April last year. So most of these conference nowadays we have online web-based meeting, but also we have some in-house candidate. So although this is a hybrid, but we can successfully invite a lot of speakers come to this meeting, although not personally, but we can see them on air. So this is a 2-day meeting. We have 20 sections with 69 invited speakers, and we have registration of almost 700 candidates from 23 countries to come to this conference. So in the future, in 2022, our next step of development is to focus on to develop a registry in Hong Kong And with the help of Dendrite, we are now working on the Hong Kong registry. And hopefully we can start run that in 2022, and we will see what happens afterward. Thank you for your attention, and nice to see you all, and hope to see you in person next year.
Hi dear friends, this is Hua Yang from China. It is my great honor to share with you our national report. It is based on the Chinese Obesity and Metabolic Surgery database. The earliest case report of bariatric surgery in mainland China can be dated back in 1980s, but the laparoscopic bariatric surgery was first performed in year 2000. The first laparoscopic root-right gastric bypass was in 2004, and the first laparoscopic sleeve gastrectomy was in 2006. The prevalence of obesity and diabetes, I found the data from different sources, from the peer-reviewed journals and government reports. We can see that the obesity rate increased from 5% to 16.4% in the past 10 years, and the diabetes rate is around 12%. For the indication of bariatric and metabolic surgery in China, 10 years ago we didn't have any national guidelines in China, and we mainly took NIH guidelines as reference. In 2019, we had the second version of the CSMB guidelines, and according to the guidelines, if the patients had a BMI over 32.5, we recommend bariatric surgery for them. And if the patients with BMI over 27.5 with type 2 diabetes, we recommend metabolic surgery for the patients. For the insurance coverage, 10 years ago, it was not well discussed. Usually, it was not covered at all at the time. But now, the bariatric surgery is still not covered by the public health insurance, but some of the metabolic surgery was covered in some provinces under certain conditions. The number of bariatric surgeons increased from 15 to 615 in the past 10 years, and the number of bariatric centers increased from 14 to 400. And for the number of bariatric and metabolic surgery in the past 10 years, 10 years ago we only had around 614 cases performed per year, but after 10 years the number of bariatric surgery increased a lot, already over 10,000 cases per year. I'm going to skip this slide and show in the details in the next slide for the laparoscopic bariatric surgery. From this table, we can see that the number of cases increased a lot in the past 10 years. We can see that 10 years ago, the most popular laparoscopic procedure was root-right gastric bypass. But in the last 2 years, sleeve gastrectomy became the most popular procedures in mainland China. It is similar with other countries in the world. The influence of COVID-19 on bariatric and metabolic surgery. The surgery was temporarily affected at the beginning of the pandemic, but it returned to normal in a short period of time. So the number of cases was not affected much, and the total number of cases was even increased between 2019 and 2020. The biggest changes in metabolic and bariatric surgery for the 10 years, the number of bariatric centers increased tenfold, and the number of cases also increased 22-fold. And the government insurance are still not covering bariatric surgery, but it covers metabolic surgery in some provinces under certain conditions. The CSMBS has been established. The national guideline has been published and updated for 2 versions already. The Chinese Journal of Obesity and Metabolic Diseases, the electronic edition has been published. The Chinese Obesity and Metabolic Surgery Collaborative has been established, what we call COMS Collaborative, and the national database has been set up. And the number of publications or articles increased rapidly in the past few years, and our colleagues and our society joined IFSO, and we hosted IFSO APC Congress 2019. So the last slide about the current problems and future perspective. The number of bariatric surgery increased a lot in the recent years. The government insurance only covers part of the cost in some regions, depends on local policies, and the new procedure or technologies should be performed with cautions and after IRB approval and MTD discussion. Training and accreditation program is needed, and the national database and multi-center research should be encouraged. So, dear friends, thank you very much for your time.
I would like to appreciate the moderators and all the speakers in this session. The Professor Ota is writing a paper regarding this national report to submit to Obesity Surgery Journal. And my talk is what was changed in this decade. This is my COI and the case mix disclosures. So I would like to talk about the summary of comparison between 2010 and 2020. In 2011, we had IFSO APC Congress in Japan. At that time, only 4 countries officially joined IFSO. But now we have 14 countries joined IFSO APC. This is a change in obese population, which means the BMI over 30. 9 countries increased the obesity population, but China has more than doubled. And diabetes population also changed. Many countries increased the diabetes population. Malaysia and India has a huge change in this decade. This is a change in indication of bariatric surgery. 9 out of 13 countries changed the indication of bariatric surgery, which means they reduced the indication of BMI. And also that the indication of metabolic surgery changed. 4 countries newly established the indication of metabolic surgery. And 4 countries started to cover a bariatric surgery from BMI 27.5. And 4 countries changed the indication of metabolic surgery. And also insurance coverage changed. The 3 countries already covered in 2010, and the 4 countries started to be covered until this year. But 9 countries still no coverage by public insurance. And regarding metabolic surgery, the 3 countries started to be covered and 9 countries not covered yet. This is a change of number of bariatric surgeons. Now we have almost 5,000 bariatric surgeons in Asian Pacific chapter, increasing in all countries, but China has 12 times more in comparison with 10 times ago, and the 6 countries has more than 4 times. And now we have more than 800 institutions doing a bariatric surgery, and China has 10 times more, and 5 countries more than 4 times in this decade. And of course, the number of bariatric surgery increased almost 50,000 cases in a year, and Australia still biggest number, and China 21 times more in these 10 years, and the 6 countries is more than 4 times. The biggest change in bariatric metabolic surgery in this decade is the increased number of bariatric surgeons at the institutions and the increased number of cases, and the insurance coverage is changed, and increased awareness about bariatric metabolic surgery. And 3 countries started national registry in this decade. So I'd like to talk about the influence of COVID-19. Until 2019, the number of bariatric surgery gradually increasing in our chapter. And in 2019, we have more than 66,000 cases per year, and India hit more than 20,000 cases, 20,000 cases in a year. But COVID-19 hit the world. And probably 2020 is the first year which we have reduction of the case number of bariatric surgery in the Asian Pacific chapter. And the biggest reduction was in India. It was just 1/5 of the last year, and the 4 countries has more than 60% of a reduction. And the 4 countries has less than 30% of a reduction, and the 5 countries unchanged or increased even in the pandemic. And the current problem is still insurance coverage and medical funding system, and lack of awareness among physicians and the general public. And there's still some countries suffering from a small number of cases. This is the conclusion. The bariatric metabolic surgery is rapidly developing in Asian Pacific chapter for 10 years. And the COVID-19 pandemic has some impact in Asian Pacific chapter. However, we are sure APC to be recovered soon. Thank you very much. Thank you all the speakers for the very nice lectures regarding change of these 10 years. So I'd like to have a comment from Wei Jie to conclude this session.
Thank you, Kasa. I think this is a extraordinary, surprising job. We all can see the 10 years we moved from the initial to now really mature. I think the most impressive thing for me is the incidence of diabetes in Malaysia is closing up to 20%. That is really a serious epidemic. And the second is the increase of numbers, especially in China. We can see it's increased 21 times, and we expect they will increase in the next 10 years another 21 times. So I expect the net case number in China may exceed Australia maybe 2 years later. So this is a really big improvement. And COVID-19 impact, I think, is very huge, but it's decreasing now. We hope next 2 years we can meet together again. So thank you very much again for all the present from the Asian Pacific, and thanks the Kasama to organizing this wonderful section. Thank you very much. Back to you, Kazu.
Thank you. We're gonna go to the next session. And, are you here, Harry? Harry, are you here? Can you moderate the session?
I'm starting now. Just, yeah. 1 second.
Okay, fine. It
1
happens.
second. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, but I cannot see you.
Yes.
Right,
Yes.
okay. I'll just see what's going on here.
Age make you slow. Okay, see you.
I can see you
Okay.
now.
No
Hurry,
sound. You are
unmute your mic.
muted.
Right. Is that better?
Yes, great.
You can hear me now. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Kazu. It really is a pleasure to be invited to moderate this session, the presidential address. It was very interesting to hear all the different reports from the different countries and to see how in the last 10 years, how IFSO APC has grown up. A lot of the registrants who will be watching today are probably not aware that bariatric surgery has been going on for 60 years all around the world, initially starting in America and then into Europe and in Australia. I think I did my first bariatric procedure in 1974. But in the last 10 years, we started the APC. And here I have to acknowledge the founders of the APC, who were really Professor Pradeep Chaubey, Professor Isawa Kawamura, unfortunately who's passed away, and Professor Wei-J Lee, together with myself. It was a task trying to get everybody together to start the IFSO APC, but it's wonderful to see how it's increased in numbers and it's increased in quality over these years. Now, at this stage, we introduce Professor Kazu Kasama, who's been the president for the last few years under difficult times, as you can understand. Under COVID, it hasn't been an easy task running an organization in the Asia Pacific, but he's done a wonderful job. And as you know, he's the director of surgery, weight loss and metabolic surgery in Kotsuo Medical Q and a clinical professor of Oyata University School of Medicine in the Department of Surgery. He's also been president of different societies in relation to bariatric surgery over these years and has been an accomplished surgeon. Most interesting has been, if you've seen all the reports that we've just watched now, how many of the photos included Kazu, Professor Kasama. He was seen in all the countries, sitting there in the front, and obviously is a mentor to all the Asia Pacific regions. And I certainly congratulate him for that and thank him for promoting a quality of bariatric surgery. Apart from his surgical expertise, you may know that he's also an expert in martial arts. So I suggest that nobody's really confront him face on. And it is in my really honor to introduce Professor Kasama to give his presidential address. Thank you.
Thank you, Harry, for a very kind introduction. So I'd like to share my slide. Can you see my slide?
Yes, we can see.
Everybody's okay. That's great. So it's really my honor to have this opportunity of my last presidential address and introducing incoming President CC1. So in 2011, we just have 4 countries involved in IFSO APC, but now we have 13 countries involved in APC now. Sorry, 14 countries involved in APC. And during my presidency, 2 new societies came into our chapter. The first one was the Thailand Society for Metabolic and Bariatric Surgery. President is Dr. Sudachi, and the vice president is Dr. Sutep. And then the Indonesia Metabolic Bariatric Society also joined us. The founding president is Dr. Elawan and Dr. Barian, and the current president is Dr. Leno. So as you saw in the previous session, number of the bariatric surgery in Asian Pacific chapter is increasing dramatically in these 10 years. And also that the number of the bariatric surgeon dramatically increased. So we have a big leap in this decade. So I'd like to talk about the president of ESAPC. Including me, we have 4 presidents until now. But talking about the presidents, I would like to talk about Dr. Isao Kawamura. He was not the president of ESAPC, but he has huge influence to Asian Pacific chapter. He was the president of East World Congress in Tokyo and the co-founder of ESAPC and the president of IPSO-APC Congress 2011, but he passed away in 2012. He started the open gastric bypass in Japan, and also he started lap gastric bypass, lap assisted gastric bypass. Many of you think that I'm the pioneer of laparoscopic bariatric surgery in Japan, but the true pioneer is Dr. Kawamura. He started lap assisted gastric bypass 2 years before me. And then I followed him. I started lap gastric bypass 2002, and Professor Kitano started lap banding, and I started lap sleeve gastrectomy and lap sleeve gastrectomy with DJB. In 2004, Dr. Kawamura held the 9th World Congress of IPSO in Japan, Tokyo. And at that time, he asked me to organize the 6th International Symposium on Laparoscopic Obesity Surgery. You may notice that at that time, laparoscopic surgery is just one of the sessions, just one of the symposium, not the mainstream of the obesity surgery at that time. And I was so lucky to hold the symposium and inviting Dr. Kelvin Higa and Dr. Ricardo Cohen and Dr. Luigi Angrisani to Japan. In 2009, we have the first IPSO-APC meeting in Cairns. It was a very impressive meeting, and also it was very important for me. And at that time, I met Ken Loy in Cairns. You know, this is my favorite picture from Ken Loy. He enjoyed the puppy with his puppy named Bailey, and it's quite funny that he and Barry wear a Louis Vuitton costume. And also, I really like my puppies. My 2 puppies are the best things which the pandemic brought me. And the second IPSO-APC session Congress was 2011 in Japan, Rusu, Hokkaido. And this is one of my favorite pictures with Lilian and Wei Jie with Dr. Kawamura wearing a Japanese costume. I would like to talk about the pioneer in Asian Pacific chapter. You know that Harry Friedenberg is the founding president of APC, but he is the youngest heart in Asia Pacific chapter. A few years ago, I met him in Singapore. At that time, he drinks 1 liter of beer and 2 pounds of steak. And also, the Pradeep is a good friend of His Holiness of Dalai Lama. So that this is one of the most honorable photos from Pradeep Chobe. And I upload this photo to my Facebook, but all the comments was regarding our head, the same shape of my head. It's my honor. And also that many of you know that Lilian Ko is the president of World IPSO. I'm very proud of her, and also very proud of APC that we have the first female president of IPSO from our chapter. And the Professor Lee is like a Master Yoda to us. 2004, he established Asian Pacific Bariatric Metabolic Surgery Society, and he focused on Asian metabolic diseases. And he established the consensus, including diabetes as a surgical indication in 2005, much earlier than other Western country societies. And with Master Yoder, with Murphy, Shiken, Simon, Sutep, we are just like, Jedi warriors with the supervision of a Master Yoda. And looking back for our 15 years, I feel like spending boyhood with Murphy, Shiken, Simon, Sutep, with the beginning of a bariatric surgery in Asia. So we meet each other almost every month, or sometimes every weekend. And I could hold a meeting of APMBSS meeting in Japan in 2018 with the help from many friends of Asian Pacific region. It was a successful meeting in Japan. And also I established the teams between the 3 East Asian metabolic surgery focused on the Eastern Asian bariatric metabolic surgery with Korea, China, and Japan surgeons. We could hold every year meeting with 3 countries. And through the APMBS and ISO-APC activity, I could have a very nice opportunity to make a very nice relationship with Asian bariatric metabolic surgeons of many countries. This is my treasure. And we could make a borderless alliance, so which I call the Asian Bariatric Mafia. And not only in Asia, I could have a very nice friendship with many surgeons all over the world. Of course, another Master Yoda is Kelvin Higer, and Jax, Nathan, and the Crazy Cohen, and Armino, and Manuel, Neto, and of course, we cannot forget our beautiful secretary, Manuel. And through this activity, I always say that the surgery has no border. This is the time I was invited to Kashmir, India by Murphy, and Kashmir is the border between India and Pakistan, so that we have to think of the border. But during surgery, the Oman surgeon and the Thailand surgeon and India surgeon voluntarily assisted me during surgery. So I felt no border during surgery. So surgeons can respect each other upon skill, knowledge, experience, attitude, and science. So that means that no border. So I would like to tell the young surgeons in Asian Pacific chapter to get out from your position. And now Asian Pacific chapter is preparing the scholarship for young surgeons. And also I would like to appreciate Japanese surgeons who support me during these 2 years, and my teammate and my Japanese fellows. And also I have an international clinical fellowship in Yotsuya Medical Cube. We already have 9 countries and 14 members of my clinical fellowship, international clinical fellowship. So first and foremost, I need to talk about Yosuke Seki. This is my favorite picture with Yosuke and 2 turkeys in Turkey. But he's very silly looking here, but he published 36% of the bariatric paper from Japan, and one of the most academic bariatric surgeon in Asian Pacific chapter. So I asked Yosuke and Wayan to establish ISO APC library, which is monthly review of a publication from Asian Pacific chapter. So I think that evidence from Asia is very important. So from the learning from WJ, the bariatric metabolic surgery for Asian patients by Asian surgeons with Asian evidence is important. So unfortunately, the real meeting of last year, Sri Lanka, was postponed. And last year, we also have ISO APC Virtual Congress. And this year is also Virtual Congress. But we can have many sponsorship, and the Kenloy and the CC1 played a very important role to get the sponsorship of this meeting. And Manuela and Stefania established very nice the platform for this meeting. So that I'd like all of you to visit our sponsored booth. So unfortunately, real meeting of ISO-APC next year not decided yet because of the unpredictable situation in Asia. But I really hope to have this kind of crazy gathering again in next year. So I'd like to report that the new president-elect, the Kenloy, is officially elected as the new president-elect. So that the president next to me is CC1, and then we go to Kenloy. So the ISO executive board of APC is now, it's end up today, and it will move to this officially move to the new executive board. So I would like to involve the many countries in ISO executive board in near future. So looking up my life as a surgeon, I'm a very lucky person. I have many great friends and mentors, and I really appreciate all around myself. Of course, I need to appreciate my family. And in this year, I have a new family, 2 new family members. But I cannot pay back to all my friends and mentors. So what I can do is pay it forward for the young ISO-APC members. So I need to pass my presidency to CC1 now. And I'd like to introduce CC1. He's my good friend and the vice president of the first affiliate hospital of Jinan University and the president of CSMBS. And CC was born in the Sichuan province in China, the beautiful hometown of the panda. So he may look like a panda. And he graduated Luzhou Medical College in Sichuan province in China. And after graduation of the university, he becomes the leading surgeon of the mainland China. And he first performed laparoscopic Roux-en-Y gastric bypass in mainland China, and performed over 3,000 metabolic and bariatric surgery. And he established the CSMBS, and the case number of the national case in mainland China increased from 6,000 to 20,000 annually since his presidency of CSMBS. And he is the chief editor of 4 books related to laparoscopic surgery, and he established and also chief editor of the Chinese Journal of Obesity and Metabolic Diseases. Of course, he's a very nice husband and very good daddy. And he met his wife in high school and have 1 daughter. And she is currently working as an accountant in Australia. I'm glad that she's not look like Shishi, and she may look like his wife. So my presidency is ending up now, but I'm looking forward to the next big leap in the following decade with the leadership of CC1 and Ken Loy. Thank you very much for hearing my presidential talk. So I'd like to pass my mic to CC1.
Okay. Thank you, President Kazu Kasama, my friend. Dear President Kazu Kasama, dear President Lilian Ko, dear IFSO colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm very honored to be the new president of IFSO APC chapter. Thank you, everyone, for your trust and support. We all know IFSO is the world's largest non-profit academic organization in the field of obesity and metabolic surgery. Being president of the IFSO APC chapter is not only an affirmation and honor for me, but also means more responsibility and challenge. There are many countries in the Asia-Pacific region with a very high population, accounting half of the world's total population, and with many kind of languages, with different degrees of economic development and degrees of obesity problem from country to country. However, in some Asia-Pacific region countries, bariatric surgery is still in its infancy and innate development stage. There is still a long way to go, so we still need to work hard. In addition, in the past 2 years, under the influence of the global epidemic, the development of bariatric surgery and the international academic exchange has met a lot of difficulties. President Kazu Kasama, thank you for your outstanding work in the past 2.5 years. In this regard, during the next 2 years, I will adjust my work method to conform the epidemic changes, united bariatric surgery experts in the Asia-Pacific region, and strengthen online academic exchanges with the support of IFSO and the other IFSO chapters. I will spare no effort to permit academic exchange between different countries, strengthen professional training for young doctors, and help some countries in the Asia-Pacific region to develop bariatric surgery. Thank you all. Thank you, Kazu.
Thank you, CC. So I'm looking forward to see your activity, more activity in IFSO APC as a leader of this chapter. Thank you so much. I would like to appreciate all who joined this meeting, and I finish my presidency now.